Good morning. And happy Father's Day to any of the fathers here among us. As we settle in for the hour, let's pause to center our minds and our hearts for worship. And we begin with a prayer by the Reverend Ade Amakreba, which was written for Juneteenth. Also known as Freedom Day, Juneteenth celebrates the day on June 19th, 1865, when the Emancipation Proclamation was read to enslaved African Americans. And our nation will celebrate Juneteenth this Thursday. So please join me in the spirit of meditation or prayer. Creator of all, as believers in justice woven into a single garment of life, making us one with the human family, let us rejoice for those who safely pass through the shades of night towards the daylight of freedom. Spirit of all possibilities, may we be blessed with true freedom, free of all oppressions. Spirit of hope, with grateful hearts, we lift our voices in shared solidarity, holding each other safe in the fire of justice and the light of love. Amen, and blessed be. And come, my friends, let's worship together.
Well, Reverend Sasha, seeing no young junior worship associates here today, would you be willing to light our chalice? It's time to light our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. In honor of Father's Day, our chalice lighting words this morning are for fathers and for fatherhood by the Reverend Peter Friedrichs. For sleepless nights awaiting the curfew breakers, for anxious hours as a driving instructor, for hours spent on sidelines cheering and watching school plays, sometimes resting your eyes, for teaching moments and mentoring moments, for making up answers when you just don't know but are expected to because you know everything, for scrapes and boo-boo kisses and Band-Aids, for hugs and kisses and silliness and play, for bedtime stories and early morning ice time, for all the aftershave and ties received as gifts, for handing over car keys and waves goodbye, for father-daughter wedding dances, and cradling grandchildren for the first time, for all the moments and all the meaning in the role of a lifetime, we light our chalice for fathers and for fatherhood. And now please stand as you're able for our affirmation by James Villa Blake. Please repeat each line after me. Love is the spirit of this fellowship.
Love is the spirit of this fellowship.
And service is its law.
And service is its law.
This is our great covenant.
This is our great covenant.
To dwell together in peace.
To dwell together in peace.
To seek the truth in love.
To seek the truth in love.
And to help one another.
And to help one another.
And now let's stay standing for our opening hymn. It's in the gray hymnal, and it's number 184, Be Ye Lamps Unto Yourself. invite today's worship associate. Welcome. Woo! And welcome and welcome and welcome to the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Welcome especially to any newcomers brave enough to listen to me, returning members, and anyone who joined us online today. If you're tuning in live on YouTube or Facebook, please say hi in the chat or comments. We're delighted to have you with us. We're a community of many ages, but we all worship together. You can join us many ways on Sundays, including online, here in the sanctuary, or from one of the many rooms in our building where we live stream the service. In particular, I want to draw your attention to our family room for families with little ones, which is located out our doors to the right. The family room is especially great if you need space to talk, soothe a crying infant, or get the wiggles out. Our service is live streamed there, so you won't miss a thing. Kids of all ages are always welcome in our services, but apparently today they have something better to do. But we offer childcare as an additional option for families with small children ages 9 months to 5 years. Parents, if you find yourselves in need of childcare at any point during the service, please bring your little one to room 201 at the top of the stairs. Here at the Morristown UU, we're always trying to be more welcoming and inclusive. Today, we invite you in a new, or perhaps almost new practice. When expressing your encouragement or appreciation during our services, you may be tempted to applaud. We ask instead that you rub your hands together or wave your fingers so that we can be mindful and considerate of anyone with extra sensitivity to sound. And we're happy to look into other changes to our services to be more welcoming to everyone who worships with us. If you or your loved one have sensory sensitivities, we invite you to convey your situation to Reverend Sasha, and we will do our best to address it. Again, welcome to everyone here today with us. We're glad you're here. And now I'm channeling my inner Nick and presenting to you our Time for All Ages, The Beautiful Tiger by Christopher Buisse. There once was a beautiful and powerful tiger. One day, she was captured by a mean and cruel man who put her into a cage. The man kept the cage in the jungle, not far from his house. Every day, he would bring out a bowl of water and some food for the lonely tiger. Sometimes the tiger would see her reflection in the bowl of water, and she would say, "My, I must be a beautiful tiger." When the man heard her say this, he would lie and tell her, "No, you're not a beautiful tiger. You're very ugly. You're a pitiful creature." Sadly, the tiger would believe the man. Some days, after she ate her food, she would walk back and forth in her small cage and feel energy and power moving through her body. And she would say, "My, I must be a powerful tiger." When the man heard her say this, what do you think? He would lie and tell her, "No, you are weak and puny. You're a pitiful creature." Sadly, the tiger would believe the man. Then one day, when the man was nowhere around, a lion happened to walk by the cage. The lion saw the tiger inside and spoke to her. "Beautiful and powerful tiger, what are you doing lying about in that cage?" "Do not make fun of me," replied the tiger. "I know that I am neither beautiful nor powerful." "I'm not making fun of you," said the lion. "You are surely the most beautiful and powerful tiger I have ever seen. I am only surprised to see you lying here when you are clearly strong enough to break out of that cage." "You really think I could break out of here?" asked the tiger. "Quite easily, I should think," replied the lion. The tiger was not so sure at first. She had been told so many times that she was a weak and pitiful creature But suddenly it seemed that she could feel energy and strength moving through her body. She began to pace back and forth in her cage, and then almost without thought, she leapt against the cage door, and it flew open without any resistance. Once outside, she seemed dazed. That cage didn't even have a lock on it, she said. I spent so much of my life stuck in there, and the door wasn't even locked. The lion looked at her with soft brown eyes and said, "Those kinds of traps don't need locks, for it is the lies we believe in that keep us in our cages, and it is the truth that sets us free." There are two different types of cages and two different types of freedom in this story. One kind is physical. The tiger used to roam free in the world and have control over where she went and what she did. But then she was caught against her will and locked up in a cage. She was no longer free, but a captive in a very physical sense. The other kind of cage and freedom is our minds and our spirits. The tiger's beliefs about herself, that she was weak and powerless, prevented her from seeing if she could escape her cage. Even though it did not have a lock on it, she was still trapped inside, because she was trapped in mind and spirit. She needed to escape the hurtful thoughts about herself in order to escape the cage. To escape the physical cage and find her freedom, then, the tiger had also to free her mind. We'll explore that later in our service.
Good job. And now it's time for our milestones and passages. Sometimes we come through these doors on Sunday mornings carrying a lot on our hearts. You know, life can be like a beautiful rose. It has sweetness and softness, but it can also have thorns sometimes. Maybe you had a birthday. Maybe you're going through legal troubles. Maybe you reached a milestone anniversary, or perhaps you're coping with a mental health struggle. And children have joys and sorrows too, things that make them happy or sad. And whatever your age and whatever the roses or thorns of your own life, you can share them in our service before 9 a.m. on Sunday by filling out a milestones and passages form, which is available online. The link is in your newsletter, and you can also fill out a form on your way through the doors. There are forms available there on the table to your right. We have a milestone and passage to share today, and I ask that you respond afterward by saying, "We hold you in our hearts." And if you are joining us online, on Facebook or on YouTube, I invite you to respond in the chat or in the comments. This morning, it is with sadness that I share the news that Morristown UU member Arlene Shapiro died on Tuesday, June 10th. A memorial service to celebrate Arlene's life will be held here at the fellowship at a later date. And at this time, we hold Arlene's family and friends in our hearts during this time of grief. And we would light a candle from our chalice, flame as a memorial to honor her life. But I have forgotten to put a flame out, so I will do that later in the service. We hold you in our hearts. Let's take a moment now for the prayers and meditations of your own hearts. Go ahead and close your eyes. Allow yourself to get comfy in your chair. It's good to remind ourselves to do this periodically. Get comfy in your chair. Just focus on your breath. Hear the breaths of those around you, this community that holds you. Feel the spirit of life holding all of us in this still moment. And let's take 3 deep belly breaths together and then a moment of silence. Amen and blessed be. And now let's please remain seated as we sing number 1035, Freedom is Coming, which you can find in your blue hymnal as well as on our screen.
Freedom,
Our reading this morning is a poem by Reverend Julian Jamaica Soto from their fabulous book of meditations, Spilling the Light. Reverend Soto has worked in parish ministries, interim ministry, and hospital chaplaincy with veterans and lives in the Pacific Northwest. They seek to serve the mission and values of Unitarian Universalism along with the healing of the world. They write, "To be free, you must embrace the breadth of your own existence without apology, even if they try to take it from you. You must know not that you can do whatever you want. You are not a kudzu vine eating entire hillsides for the purposes of feeding your own lush life. You must know instead that inside you are entire universes, milky blue, magenta, and gold, expanding. But to actually be free, you must know and you must fight for the entire universes inside of everyone else. Being free is not a license, but a promise." We come now to the time in our service each Sunday when we pause to offer our gifts of financial support to this congregation. Your donations make all that we do here together possible and also help make our wider community a better place. That's because each Sunday we give at least half of the money we collect to an organization that is doing good work to advance our Unitarian Universalist values of love, justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity in a world that hungers for them now more than ever. Today's offering will be split 50-50 with Table of Hope, which is committed to improving the quality of life of Morris County families by constructing pathways to economic stability, educational excellence, and holistic well-being. You may give in our collection plate or by following the instructions printed in your order of service and shown on the screen. Thank you in advance for your generosity.
All righty, show of hands. Who attended the No Kings protest yesterday? Thank you for showing up for our democracy. Now, there were several moments yesterday during the No Kings protest that touched me. Hearing Miles Gorman, one of our bridging youth here at Morristown UU, speak was one such moment. And another powerful moment was when former Congressman Tom Malinowski led the crowd in reciting the oath of office, the same oath that he took when he began his time in public service. And he talked about becoming a citizen of our nation when he was 10 years old, and how immigrants must take a similar oath to the oath of office before they can become citizens. And in both cases, political leaders and new citizens alike pledge, "I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation of purpose or evasion. So help me God." So yesterday, Malinowski led the crowd in reciting that same oath, and he reminded us that every citizen, naturalized or born here, and every public servant, too, has a solemn responsibility to defend our Constitution. And later, our own Miles Gorman drew our attention back to the Constitution, this time to the preamble, the part of the Constitution that goes, "We, the people of the United States of America, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity." And Miles pointed out that many of our elected officials have not been doing their job. In particular, they have not been securing the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Now, when I find myself thinking about our posterity, about the generations to come after us, I also find myself thinking about some of our ancestors, about those who came before us, kin of blood and kin of heart alike. And I find myself thinking about the blessings of liberty that we receive from past generations. As Unitarian Universalist, liberty, freedom, has long been one of the most cherished values of our faith. And in particular, we have a long history of emphasizing religious freedom and later intellectual freedom. We've worked really hard to pass those on to our descendants. All the way back in the 16th century, the Unitarian king of Hungary passed the Edict of Torda, a very early law advancing the cause of religious freedom. And the edict declared, "The preachers shall preach and explain the gospel, each according to his understanding of it. And if the congregation like it, well. If not, no one shall compel them, for their souls would not be satisfied. Therefore, no one shall be reviled for his religion by anyone, and it is not permitted that anyone should threaten anyone else with imprisonment." Meanwhile, our Puritan religious forebears, which sounds really weird to say, but it is true, our Puritan forebears came to what would later become the United States seeking religious freedom, although, of course, they were quick to deny it to others. Yet still, we inherited some of their ways of organizing their communities, including each congregation's right to freely select its own leaders and to govern its own affairs. And these were radical ideas in colonial times when this land really was ruled by a king who was also the head of the church. Democracy in any form was risky, but our spiritual ancestors experimented with it anyway. And some of those experiments led to the formation of our American democracy, and others eventually to our own Unitarian Universalist congregations. And later, we began to emphasize not just religious freedom, but also intellectual freedom. And you can see this inheritance among our congregations today. Many people choose a UU congregation because we affirm the individual right of conscience and the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And Unitarian Universalist congregations tend to be a haven for free thinkers who felt perhaps stifled in other spaces. And we often describe ourselves as being a free church, which is drawing on language from the great 20th century Unitarian theologian and later Unitarian Universalist theologian James Luther Adams. And he wrote, "I call that church free which enters into covenant with the ground of freedom. It protests against the idolatry of any human claim to absolute truth or authority. I call that church free, which brings the individual into caring, trusting fellowship that protects and nurtures their integrity and their spiritual freedom. I call that church free, which liberates from bondage to the principalities and power of the world and promotes the continuing reformation of institutions. I call that church free, which is not bound to the present, which earns and creates a tradition binding together past, present, and future. But the church is never wholly free. It tolerates injustice, special privilege, and indifference to suffering. It passes by on the other side. In the midst of this unfreedom, the congregation comes together to adore that which is holy, to confess its own brokenness, and to renew the covenant. And I'm reminded of the remarks of a local minister at yesterday's No Kings rally. I wish that I had caught her name. She spoke about religious communities and how sometimes we enable rather than oppose oppression. And I'm reminded again of the oath Malinowski led us in and James Luther Adams' remark that in the midst of this unfreedom, we come together to renew the covenant, to renew our promises, our oaths, to pledge ourselves anew to the cause of freedom. And over the years, Unitarian Universalists have done that. We have fought hard for things like the freedom of religion, free speech, free expression. And now it makes sense that so many of us have showed up for our democracy at the No King rallies. Our freedoms are under attack in this nation, and now is the time for people of conscience, religious and non-religious alike, to work together to resist authoritarianism and to defend freedom. But in order to do that effectively, we might need to embrace a more expanded understanding of freedom than the kind that we have tended to emphasize in the past. And we will explore that a bit more soon, but for now, let's pause as we do here to sing together before continuing today's sermon. Let's go ahead and stand as we're able. We're going to sing number 145 as Tranquil streams, and we'll sing just the first two verses. I learned something new when I was selecting the hymns for today's service. To help me choose hymns, I often visit a blog by the Reverend Kimberly Dibus, a community minister in Tacoma Park, Maryland. And some of you may know her for another fabulous blog, Hold My Chalice, which I encourage you to sign up for if you have not already. But I was visiting her other blog, which is called Notes from the Far Fringe, and in it she shares reflections about each of our hymns. Yes, all 490 of them. And for the hymn that we just sang, she wrote, Marilyn Franklin Ham wrote this lyric in 1933 in advance of the first hymnal shared by the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America, Hymns of the Spirit. And yes, this was 28 years before the two denominations merged to form our modern Unitarian Universalist Association. Now, Hymns of the Spirit was intentionally written to celebrate the growing relationship between the two denominations who were finding it useful to work together. And later, as the final votes were cast and a new Unitarian Universalist Association was formed, the assembled sang this very singable hymns together. And freedom is a value highly cherished by both sides of our Unitarian Universalist heritage. It is part of what drew us to one another and what holds us together as one faith. And Reverend Davis adds, today we sing as tranquil streams about the individuals who make up the church, but it is much bigger than that. It is about your congregation and mine, your cluster and mine, your region and mine, all of us together, agreeing that we are stronger together and that our future awaits our liberating ministry. And goodness knows that the present needs us too. Now, those words feel prophetic today, but then again, they were written in February 2017 after the first inauguration of our would-be king. Yes, the future awaits our liberating ministry, but I wonder if the kind of liberation, the kind of freedom described in the hymn is the kind of freedom that our nation most truly longs for right now. You know, there's some pretty heady stuff in the hymn, by which I mean there's a lot of emphasis on the stuff in our heads, on the mind and on its liberation. The hymn is full of lines like, free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed. And these are beautiful words, but something is missing. In 1933, when the song was written, and in the century before, when intellectual freedom was popular in our tradition, there were glaring deprivations of freedom in American society. And yet the song utterly fails to mention or even nod to them. And I speak of the enslavement of African Americans and the years of Jim Crow after slavery was abolished. It was Jim Crow during 1933, yet no mention of the need for freedom in the song. So often when Unitarian Universalists discuss freedom, we mean intellectual freedom, freedom of belief, freedom of conscience, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And these are things that we cherish, and rightly so. And yes, intellectual freedom is important, but my heart clenches when I think about preachers waxing eloquent about free minds while their neighbors' living, breathing bodies were living in bondage, bought and sold on auction blocks, dragged by slave catchers back to plantations, terrorized by the KKK, lynched by white mobs, or even today when our neighbors are being kidnapped by masked thugs and disappeared in white vans. Intellectual freedom is important, but there is a different kind of freedom that we need to prioritize as well. And Juneteenth, the day when we celebrate the end of slavery in the United States, reminds us that freedom is more than just intellectual. Now, don't get me wrong, none of this is to say that UUs today or our Unitarian Universalist forebears don't care about other kinds of freedom. We do and we did. But as the minister at the No Kings rally said, sometimes when religious people start talking about other kinds of freedom, we can get pushback. When we start talking about things like the freedom of people with uteruses to make choices about our own bodies, or the freedom of our immigrant neighbors not to be kidnapped in broad daylight by armed agents of the state, or the freedom of lawmakers to do their duties that their constituents freely elected them to do without being assassinated in the dead of night. Well, sometimes when we talk about those freedoms, we're told we're being too political, that we should just get back to talking about freedom of belief and expression, preferably not by expressing any beliefs that are too political or advocating for them in the public square. And this tension in our faith isn't new. It was in our tradition even in the 1800s. Unitarians preached about intellectual freedom from the pulpit, but they hesitated to champion freedom if it involved, say, freeing their enslaved neighbors. And to be sure, some Unitarians and Universalists were abolitionists. This is true, but we sometimes overemphasize them over the many people who were not abolitionists, who were either uninvolved in the fight for abolition or who claimed it was too early to end slavery or who even supported or benefited from it. And those people, too, were in Unitarian and Universalist congregations. Yet they cherished liberty as long as it meant the kind of liberty that they personally most longed for, intellectual freedom. And to be sure, this made a lot of sense because some of them were white. They were not enslaved, and so the struggle for that kind of liberation felt distant to them. But they were branded heretics by people of other faiths for their beliefs. And so, yes, they tended to emphasize intellectual freedom. And self-interest is natural. Most of us fight powerfully for the freedoms that we personally need and against the injustices that we personally face. Of course we do. But Unitarian Universalists can sometimes be a little too individualistic. Individualism is a powerful part of our tradition. It brought us some blessings like the affirmation of the individual right of conscience. But that very same individualism can also alienate us from one another and from our neighbors beyond our congregations. Now, fortunately, one of our other values offers an important remedy, and that value is interdependence. And interdependence reminds us that we are relational beings, not isolated beings. We are part of whole ecosystems, social ecosystems, and the great webs of life of which we are a part. And when we remember that we are not just individuals, but individuals in relationship with other beings, and that we flourish best when others flourish too, because we benefit from being in relationship with happy, healthy, wise people and a healthy earth, well, then we begin to see that it's really true that no one is free until everyone is free. To reach our fullest potential, we must escape all that hinders our flourishing, but equally important, so must the people around us. Their well-being nurtures our own, and vice versa. The only true liberation is collective liberation. And we'll continue on that theme in a moment, but first let's go ahead and sing together again. We're going to stay seated this time, and we're going to sing number 317, We Are Not Our Own, and sing just the first 3 verses. My friends, freedom is a value that we cherish as Unitarian Universalists. We each have the freedom to search our own conscience and to arrive at our own conclusions about matters civil as well as divine. We each have the responsibility to examine the world in our hearts and deem for ourselves what is best and right. We each have the freedom to pursue the better world that we envision and to work in common cause with freely chosen companions for the kind of beloved community that our conscience demands. And we are all bound in relationship to one another and to the people and other beings beyond us. I think the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. said it best. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And this Juneteenth, I invite you to look to the injustices of the past. If you'd been around when slavery was still the law of the land, what do you wish you would have done? And I invite you also to look to the future, to our posterity. When future generations look back at this time, when so many freedoms are under attack, what do you want them to say about us and about how we responded and what we did? May we all go forth and do just that. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. And now, rise one more time, body or spirit, to sing. Our closing hymn this morning is number 287, Faith of the Larger Liberty. And we're going to go ahead and sing all 3 verses this time.
And now it's time for our Minutes for Ministries. Before we close, I'd like to draw your attention to this, a time when we share brief updates about our congregation's activities to help us stay engaged with our community beyond our Sunday service. This morning, I'd like to draw your attention to the following. Any newcomer with us today are invited to fill out a welcome card to help you get connected with us. You can also talk to our welcome ambassador, who would love to meet you and answer any questions. Look for the sunny gold sash. Anyone needing a caring presence this morning will find a compassionate listening ear with one of our lay pastoral care associates. You'll recognize them by their sky blue sashes. Will today's welcome ambassador and lay pastoral care associates please stand or wave so we can see you? Or stand and wave. All newcomers, including those who completed our starting point class in January or May, are invited to participate in our new Soul Matters adult small group Monday night throughout the summer to explore the monthly spiritual themes through readings, reflection, sharing our stories, and discussion. This Thursday, all middle school-aged youth who love reading books are welcome to participate in our new middle school book club. The club meets every Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m., and at the end of each meeting, participants will get to choose the next book to read together. Registration for our all-day mindfulness meditation retreat is due next Sunday. The retreat is a wonderful opportunity for beginners to learn insight meditation in a supportive setting and for experienced meditators to deepen their practice. Also, next Sunday, we will have our monthly Buy Nothing exchange with Mutual Morris, an opportunity to give and receive gently used items and connect with your neighbors, and a talk with GAMIC, New Jersey's oldest LGBTQ+ organization and one of the oldest in the country. GAMIC has been meeting here at the fellowship since 1972. Finally, after today's service, the Women's Spirituality Group will meet at 11:30 in the library. Full details about these and many other activities can be found on the back of your order of service, in our weekly e-newsletter, or on our website at muuf.org. And now I open the mic to announcements from our ministry teams and committees. Please keep the announcements to 1 minute or less. We will end our announcements at 11 a.m. sharp.
Good morning. My name is Marjorie Wormser. I'm with the Fun Community Connections team, and we are inaugurating our Meals with You Friends program, which is a monthly gathering of people who choose the same day of the week and same time of the day. And the choices also include meeting at a restaurant, a public establishment, or bringing potluck together at someone's home or here at the fellowship. The information is not quite so readily accessible on our website, so if you have interest in this, please send an email to fun, F-U-N, at muff.org, M-U-U-F.org. Thank you. We hope to see you.
Hi, I'm Irene Mendelson. My husband Bob Scott and I took a wonderful trip in March and April to India and Nepal. And next Sunday, after GAMIC is done here in the meeting room, we'll have a slideshow. And we'll have some wonderful pictures of all the animals and birds and whatever that we saw on the wildlife photography workshop part of the tour. But also we managed to get out to see a bunch of spiritual and religious sites. So not to be missed. And if you stay later, because we'll begin around 12:30, if you RSVP to me or Bob, we'll make sure that there's a little bit of lunch for you. So anyway, thank you.
I'm Charlotte Walwork, and along with a couple of friends, I've started middle school book club. This month, we are reading 2 books because there's a long period of time between meetings. We will be reading Girl Mode and Boy 2 Girl. Our next meeting is July 24th. We hope to see you there.
Anyone else? Okay. Yes.
Hi, I'm Shari Lowe. I am the chair of our mortgage prevention phase of our capital campaign. I have one announcement and one appeal. One announcement is that even without checking with anyone else, we've kind of dived in. We were at 335,000 needed. We are at 330,000 as of like a week and a half. The other thing is help. Help! We need help for event planning, for reaching out to people, for finding out from you what you would want to know to reach that deep level of joy that is needed to finish paying for that damn thing that we all love so much without incurring a mortgage. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Brooke Donaldson. Following that up, I think we have 24 mortgage prevention eggs here. Caroline has them. So if anyone is interested in buying mortgage prevention eggs today, we We'll hook you up, thank you.
I think that's it. It's time for us to bring our time of worship to a close, and as we prepare to extinguish our chalice flame and go out into our daily lives, I leave you with the words of the Reverend Scott Taylor. Notice now this flame, seemingly so singular, flickering, unfettered, dancing all alone, yet pull back. Look with more attentive eyes, and slowly the chalice cup comes into view, and the air, while unseen, keeps the flame alive. All of it a reminder that being lovingly surrounded and beautifully bound is what sets us free. May this be the gift of our precious hour. May we too pull back and see ourselves anew. How tenderly tethered we've become, and how wonderfully it has set us free. And although we extinguish this chalice flame, its light will continue to burn in our hearts. Amen. Blessed be, and go in peace.
Study the medical and just make it up.